Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
Indie Alaska is a groundbreaking series that dives into the lives of people living in the last frontier. Each episode introduces you to colorful characters from around the state. Funding for Indie Alaska is provided in part by Alyeska Pipeline Service Company. Catch the latest episodes at alaskapublic.org.
The National Weather Service.
Hello and welcome to the Wednesday edition of Alaska Weather. I'm meteorologist Kimberley Hoeppner, and today is November 18th, 2015. In just a few moments, we have a lot of active weather to talk about across the state, but when we're not here, you can always get our information online by going to www.arh.noaa.gov, or you can call our 1-800 line at 1-800-472-0391. And as always, if you're on our webpage, be sure to check out our Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter options. Looking at the watches, warnings, and advisories across the area, we're going to work from west to east. Looking over across the west coast first, we have a blizzard warning that's out across the Bering Strait and St. Lawrence Island, and this is out from 3 a.m. Tonight through tomorrow afternoon. This is going to be for conditions with reduced visibilities near zero as winds are gusting between 40 to 60 miles per hour and blowing snow, with the snow heavy at times. Across the western areas of the state, we have a large area of winter storm warnings for snow. Heavy snow accumulation expected from the Susitna Valley on over towards the west coast, and we're expecting snow amounts between 6 to 10 inches, with the Susitna seeing the highest amounts between 9 to 15 inches. At this time, we also have winter weather watches for snow just to the north, so be aware that the snow is going to be progressing as we head through the day on Thursday, so watch for updates to change over to warnings possibly. And across the Alaska Range, we also have high winds that are going to affect especially the pass areas, with gusts between 50 to 80 miles per hour in locations, and also across the eastern areas of the state. Across the southwest, we do have a high surf advisory in effect for tomorrow, as surf conditions are going to get quite rough with strong westerly flow. Across the southeast here, we do have snow advisories out for snow between 4 to 6 inches accumulating through Thursday afternoon. Now, just taking a look at the northern extent, the watches go up just about the western Brooks Range for the winter snow. Now taking a look at the weather systems that are going to be impacting our area, we'll take a focus on this area near Shimia. We have a large comma cloud that stretches into the Bering and wraps around low pressure center. So this system is moving towards the east, so we already have a plume already moving into the western coast from a front that pushed through yesterday. So once again, this is the storm system that we're going to be keeping an eye on. There is some cold air flow behind the system and very warm air on the jet stream that's flowing up towards the eastern Aleutians. So we stay in a fairly long fetch of moisture. Therefore, that's why we're going to be getting those high snow accumulation amounts. Now, looking across the southern areas of the state, we still have dry conditions across much of the Gulf waters, and just mainly a westerly flow pushing some moisture into the area. The front can cross the Kodiak area back towards the eastern areas of the Bering. This front pushed through yesterday, didn't bring any precip to Kodiak, but they're seeing some precip this afternoon across the western areas of the Gulf. Putting this into motion one more time, just a weak low pressure system across the southeast. Some snow showers were tapering off tonight with a little bit of light rain, so the snow won't be picking back up until Thursday. Now for tomorrow, we'll take a look at the next low pressure system that moves at the southeast, but here it is. Rain and snow mix this afternoon across the southeast. Across much of the eastern areas and north parts of the state, we saw clear skies, just very cold temperatures with high pressure beginning to shift off to the to the east. Across the southwestern areas of the state, they saw snow extending from Bristol Bay back towards the Yukon Delta area, with some very strong winds beginning to gust along this tight gradient that's moving in from this low pressure system. Across the central areas of the Bering and across the Aleutians, mainly light rain conditions with patchy areas of fog. This system is going to be progressing further eastward tonight, pushing the snow a little bit further inland. So areas across the southwest will be seeing the intensity of the snow increase overnight. Still a mix of rain and snow across much of the central Bering back towards the Alaska Peninsula. This, however, shall be light, and then across the central areas of the Aleutians, rain for those areas. Light snow possible across the northeastern Beaufort Sea coast and across the northwest coast. Not much concern there, really. Winds will start picking up across the western areas of the state overnight. The southeast and the Gulf waters might see some showery conditions during the nighttime hours, with some light rain possible across Kodiak Island. As we head into Thursday, look for a possibility of a rain and snow mix across the southern areas of the Kenai. This is going to be the big day for precip across much of the state. We're going to see the heavy snow across the west, and we're going to see snow moving late in the day across the rest of South Central on over towards Valdez and Cordova. They should see snow amounts in this area between for Cordova around 1 to 4 inches, and then back towards the Kenai, they'll have ranges between 2 to 6 inches for Thursday during the day, and another possibility for 2 to 5 inches overnight Thursday night. For the rest of South Central, mainly we'll see snow between 2 to 4 inches, and possible tonight they'll see 1 to 2 inches. Across the Susitna Valley, they'll receive the most amount of snow, 6 to 10 inches during the day tomorrow, with additional accumulations overnight. Rain possibilities will be kind of heavy across the Alaska Peninsula as this system really starts coming together and moving towards the western coast. So look for rain across the Alaska Peninsula and eastern Aleutians. The low across the northern Bering will bring some very gusty blowing snow conditions, again reducing visibilities there to 1/2 mile or near zero at times. Across the state on Friday, this low pressure system will be pushing inland. However, it'll be followed very quickly by another low pressure system coming up from the North Pacific. Now the track of this system looks like it's going to be near Kodiak Island at the end of the day on Friday. However, Friday night, the system will continue on a north to northeasterly track. We're expecting rain possibly across South Central for the Anchorage Bowl area and the northern Kenai. However, colder air will move in, so we'll see some rain and snow mix possibly by the end of the day on Friday. Kodiak looks like they'll stay in the rain zone, and the Alaska Peninsula will change back over to a rain-snow mix. Elsewhere across the state, look for continued watches becoming warnings as you head up towards the Brooks Range as this low pressure pushes in, and there's going to be a lot of lift with this system. Good upper level dynamics will bring heavy snow amounts with some blowing snow on the initial surge. All areas will see some gustiness as well as these fronts push inland. Across the southeast, expect rain possibilities. We've gone through several days of snow, and by the end of the week, this warm air mass is going to be pushing towards that eastern area of the Gulf. So be on the lookout for that rain after all these days of snow. It's just incredible across Alaska. Showery precipitation will be around the backside of this low pressure system, with very tight gradient here across the eastern Bering, keeping a northwesterly flow. Change of winds there for your Friday. Now taking a look at your temperatures today, we didn't get as warm as we expected. We stayed in the minus 20 degree range across the central areas of the state, with the coastal areas seeing near 10 degrees. With Kodiak Island seeing the warmer temperatures in the Gulf in the mid to upper 30s to near 40. The southeast stayed a little bit cooler too, mainly in the mid 30s as they had snow and kept a little bit cooler through the day today. Looking towards the north, temperatures range between minus 15 to minus 27 through the northwestern coast there, and then minus 10 degrees towards the Seward Peninsula. Looking at the southwestern areas of the state, they had huge temperature ranges out there from 10 to 27 degrees, warmed up very nicely across the west coast there in the mid-30s, and then across the Alaska Peninsula there in the upper 30s to mid-40s. AKwx again had high temperatures today, warmest at 48 degrees. Looking at your temperatures tonight, going from the north to south, we'll have temperatures in the minus 15 to minus 20 degree range along the northern slope. Towards the interior, near steady conditions, minus 10 to minus 20. Across the coastal locations, possibly warming up with this warmer air mass pushing through the southwest. We'll see in the mid-teens to mid-20s, with the Alaska Peninsula and Aleutian staying near 40 overnight. Elsewhere across the Gulf, we'll see temperatures in the mid-teens to 20s across the southeast. Now looking at your temperatures for tomorrow, much warmer trend. Many of us have been waiting for this. Some of us will see rain for tomorrow, and that's because the temperatures are going to be creeping up across the southwest, the Bristol Bay, Kuskokwim Delta, around 35 to 39 degrees, with the Alaska Peninsula in the mid-40s. Across the northern tier of the state also is going to be warmer, between minus 5 to minus 10 degrees. Interior areas will actually be a little bit less cold, near 0 degrees. Now across the northern coast, temperatures will be creeping to the near freezing mark. Looking at your flying weather for tomorrow, mainly MVFR conditions across all of the southwest, with areas seeing IFR conditions as that low pressure approaches the west coast. Brief conditions in the morning might be MVFR across the southeast, and then improved or become MVFR later in the day with the snow. Across the northwest coast as well, MVFR conditions and MVFR all across the Bering. Now looking at your passes in more depth, we have Anaktuvik Pass, VFR, as well as Adigan, another day VFR. And we'll see Lake Clark Merrill be MVFR, and also Rainy Pass will be MVFR. Conditions across Windy will go VFR to MVFR, and we'll see Isabel Pass go VFR to MVFR. Mentasta will be clear VFR conditions, and Tanita will go VFR to MVFR. Portage will be MVFR going down to IFR late in the day, and Isabel will go MVFR to VFR during, or possibly the other way around. The low pressure system there in the southeast has been the most difficult to forecast. Across the Gulf, we have the freezing line at the surface towards the northern areas of the Bering, just north of the Pribilof Islands, and then the 2,000-foot level is freezing just across the northern areas of the Gulf and down towards the Alaska Peninsula, eastern Aleutians, quickly rising to 6,000 feet. Looking at your icing tomorrow, concerns are going to be across the west coast areas and possible conditions below 8,000 to 9,000 across much of the Gulf as well. Looking at your jet stream tomorrow, strong west to southwesterly flow with a strong jet 160 knots entering into the east-western areas of the Aleutians. Low pressure system will be very strong across the Bering. Change of wind directions here between 50 to 65 knots. The strongest winds coming up 9,000 feet will be across the southwestern areas of the state. A little bit lighter flow out of the east as you head towards the north, and a strong westerly flow across the eastern areas of the state between 20 to 35 knots. Looking at your 3,000-foot winds, this is going to be a very similar pattern, with the backside between 30 to 40 knots out of the north and a westerly flow across the southern areas of the Bering between 40 to 50 knots, with a 70-knot jet just racing off the surface near the Alaska Peninsula and Kodiak Island. A southerly flow pulls that warm air into the state between 20 and 40 knots, and a westerly flow across the southeast between 10 to 35 knots. So your turbulence across the area are going to be widespread, where the low pressure system is just really pushing into the coast, and we have this speed maxima. So look for speed shear and possibly some directional shear around this low pressure system. Across the southeast, there is some directional shear and speed shear, as well as the low pressure system quickly develops. In just a moment, we'll be back with your marine and public forecast.
Ben, give me a hand.
Unfortunately, many of the old treatments can be dangerous.
Really, I'm all right.
For example, don't rewarm the whole body by putting the victim in a hot shower. A hot shower or tub rewarms the surface of arms and legs. This sends a message to the body that it's okay to open circulation to those cold extremities. Vital warm blood sent from the core rapidly cools as it passes through cold arms and legs. When it gets back to the heart, that shot of cold blood can cause an unusual heartbeat, which results in the heart muscle starting to shiver rather than pump. The patient then has a heart attack. Another old treatment is to give alcohol. It's also dangerous. Like a hot shower, it fools the body into thinking it's warm when it isn't.
Want to give him some coffee?
In fact, any liquid can be dangerous.
No hot liquids.
Because the hypothermia victim is not just cold. He may also be in shock, and you can't give any liquid to a shock victim. He could throw it up, draw the vomit into his lungs, and die from aspiration pneumonia.
Let's be real easy with him.
So, to treat hypothermia safely, be slow and gentle.
How you feeling, Hank?
Don't jar the victim. A hypothermia victim who is being rewarmed should be treated very gently. A sudden jar or shock can also cause an apparent heart attack. It is a fact that even though treatment is progressing, a hypothermia victim's body temperature continues to drop before it starts to rise again. The victim is very vulnerable at this time.
Nice and easy now.
To rewarm a hypothermia victim, use only those treatments that are always safe. The first part of treatment is to take them out of the cold to prevent further heat loss. At this point, the body may not be able to rewarm itself. Blankets will not rewarm a cold body. They only insulate. You need a heat source. First, wrap the cold arms and legs to keep them from rewarming too quickly as you attempt to rewarm the body core of the victim. Then, rewarm the high heat loss areas, the head, neck, armpits, sides, and groin of the victim. The most effective, safe way to rewarm hypothermia victims in the field is to use warm objects and body-to-body rewarming. Warm objects are literally anything that is warm, including warm rocks, lukewarm hot water bottles, warm heating pads, warm packs, or even warm potatoes. But be careful. Be absolutely sure that the objects are not hot. You can burn the victim because of their cold-induced numbness. Hypothermia victims won't be able to tell you if the object is too hot. Check on it yourself, like you would a baby's bath. If it feels uncomfortably warm to you, it's too hot for the victim.
This one, let's get this under his neck. Got a stocking cap ready? Yes. Just head up and slide it on. Okay, take it easy. Okay. Okay, Hank, lay your head down nice and easy. Let's see if we can't start warming up the sides. Let's go body to body. Just get your shirt off, right?
Body-to-body rewarming is when one or more warm, healthy people embrace the victim within some insulated shelter such as blankets or a sleeping bag. If this treatment is used, one should continue the treatment for at least an hour.
Okay, just take it easy now. We're going to stay here until you get a little bit warmer, okay?
Oh, man, stay there forever. Wow.
Okay.
These rewarming treatments are safe, slow, and gentle. Don't rush them, and be sure to protect the victim from further cold and from shocks or sudden moves. To safely live and survive in a cold environment, you have to know about hypothermia. Hypothermia is the lowering of body core temperature. It's prevented by having adequate shelter for the body, proper clothing. Recognize hypothermia by the victim's physical symptoms and their exposure to the environmental conditions that cause it. Avoid total rewarming of the body. Do not give any liquids, especially hot liquids or alcohol. It's treated with warm objects or body-to-body rewarming, which is safe, slow, and gentle. Hypothermia is a physical condition. It affects the body. Yet a victim's will to live is often the decisive factor in whether or not they will survive.
Well, I always thought survival was physical. You know, if he was really strong, you could make it. But for some reason, I just said to myself, oh, heck, I'm breathing, I'm alive, I'm going to stay with it as long as I can. I did have a lot of water in my suit. I already had hypothermia before I hit the beach. And mainly, it was really hard because I couldn't swim. I didn't have no goal. It was just lay back in the water for the night and see where I was in the daytime. And of course, I didn't know if I'd be near land or not. I was hoping I would be. And well, it just got to be a battle with myself on thinking of the positive things.
It's a fact that people with mild cases of hypothermia have apparently given up and died, while others have survived under conditions we'd never believed possible.
Whoa! Whoa! Hey, man overboard!
To know what it is, know how to prevent it, how to recognize it, and how to treat it. When was the last time you shivered from the cold?
Don't take your eye off of him!
Hypothermia is the lowering of the body core temperature. The best prevention for hypothermia is to stay dry.
Get those clothes off him!
It makes good sense to treat him for hypothermia.
Give me a hand.
Hello and welcome back to the show. Now we're going to go on to your ice maps. Looking at the Cook Inlet, we see that there has been ice development along the northern inlet and across the arms. So be on the lookout. However, we won't see much growth as we go through this warming trend. Actually, it might even erode this ice edge as we get this strong southwesterly flow in. Now across the southwestern coast and western coastal areas, we do have some ice along the coast, including Bristol Bay, and as well they might see some eroding as we head towards the end of the week due to the strong southwesterly warmer flow. Looking at your Thursday marine forecast for the southeast, we see that across the inner channels there's a north to southeast directional change there with small crafts across the middle channels with seas between 4 to 5 feet. Across the outer waters, gales as you head towards Yakutat, but mainly between 20 to 30 knots across the southern areas. Higher gusts, though, up to 40 knots will be possible across the outer waters. Seas will be between 10 to 12 feet across the outer channels, and then as we head into your day on Friday, more of a southerly flow across the entire area. Gale warnings out there for the outer waters with small craft across the inner waters between 5 to 6 feet across the inner channels, and then across the outer waters seas will be much higher between 18 to 24 feet, and again higher gusts there on Friday. Looking at your Thursday forecast across the western areas of the Gulf, strong southerly flow between 40 to 45 knots with gales across much of the area. Across the Prince William Sound, easterly direction at 10 knots. The northern inlet will go from a northeasterly flow 15 knots to a very strong east to south flow across the southern inlet and near the Baranof Islands, looking at 45 knots also across Shelikof Strait. Seas across the Sound and the northern inlet will be between 2 to 3 feet across the southern areas of the inlet, around 9 feet towards the Baranof Islands, between 12 to 14 feet. Higher seas across the northern areas of the Gulf and the Northwest between 12 to 19 feet. Across the western Gulf between 13 to 17 feet, including the Shelikof Strait there. Looking at your Friday forecast, winds change to mostly a southwesterly direction with seas on this day across the inlet between 6 to 7 feet, across the Barren Islands between 7 to 15 feet, Shelikof Strait 8 feet, and across the western areas of the Gulf between 15 to 18 feet. Looking across the Alaska Peninsula, we'll see higher seas, especially on this day, with the storm force winds between south to southwest direction at 50 knots on the Pacific side and 40 to 45 knots on the Bering side. Looking at your Friday forecast, wind speeds go down a little bit, therefore the seas will be between 11 to 14 feet Bering side, 22 feet still higher seas on the Pacific side on this day. Westerly flow will prevail across much of the Aleutians as well. We'll see storm force winds across the central and eastern, the Bering side of the Aleutians, and then across the south and western areas, gales between 35 to 45 knots. And seas on this day will be highest across the southern Bering between 24 to 29 feet on your Thursday. And then on Friday, a little bit change of wind direction out of the west to northwest direction, except out towards Shimea, out of the southwest there. And seas will be between 12 to 14 feet primarily, with higher seas across the Pacific between 15 to 19 feet. Looking at your west coast, we'll have storm force winds across the northern areas of the Bering at 50 knots out of the northeast, and then towards the south between 30 to 40 knots, so mostly gale criteria. Freezing spray to the north, heavy freezing spray up towards the Bering Strait. Seas on this day will range between 11 to 25 feet. The lowest seas will be near the Nunavik Island. On Friday, you'll see a north to westerly flow across the area, all small craft, so coming down just a little bit, and seas will be between 11 to 17 feet with the highest seas towards the north, and again, freezing spray across the northern areas of the Bering. Looking at your northwest coast, Kotzebue Sound will be gales for tomorrow at 35 knots out of the east, and then 25 knots as you make it towards the Chukchi Sea, and then we'll see between 10 to 15 knots across the eastern Beaufort seacoast back towards the northwest, all out of the southeasterly direction to east towards Kotzebue. And seas on this day will be between 3 to 9 feet across the northwest coast. On Friday, easterly direction to northeasterly flow across the entire area, strongest winds towards Kotzebue Sound, with seas on this day between 9 to 10 feet. Looking at a quick summary for your weather, we'll have diminishing weather conditions across the southwestern areas of the state, with some light snow showers possible across the southeastern areas and the northern coast. The main punch will come through with very gusty winds across south central and the southwestern areas of the state up towards the Bering Strait. So expect gusty winds across all these locations, with snow blizzard warnings and watches that are going to be in effect through your day on Friday for much of the West. Thanks for joining us. I'll be back with you tomorrow.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.